In this video, we're gonna celebrate our big milestone, having over 300 subscribers for Daily Dose of Honest Science. And I thought, hey, we just have a really cool Q&A. You delivered, guys. So let's get into the questions. And someone who's going to be very special asking the questions. So have fun and enjoy. Hi guys, welcome back to Daily Dose of Honest Science. I'm so happy that you tuned in. I know, last video I was a bit cheeky. I left a big whole plot twist that I was not really having the Q&A now. But as you can see, this video is a bit longer because I took the time to answer your question, and I really hope you will enjoy it. So let's start. But first of all, I would like to take the time now to thank everyone who came from the Professor Dave world. Thank you so much for subscribing. 300 subscribers wouldn't have been possible if you wouldn't have seen my video on there. So everyone who doesn't know, I collaborated with Professor Dave on showcasing my science. What I'm doing currently right now, what kind of projects do I have, why I'm excited about science in general, and I could also, share that I'm doing science communication, and that was quite good to have. Yeah, I would like to share this little comment section now with you guys, so you can also have a bit of positive feeling and enjoying that Daily Dose of Honest Science is getting such a positive feedback. So Everblack666 said, so he's so sick of pseudoscience and conspiracy theories, so that's why he absolutely loves the series. So I'm happy that he really could gain something from this, and I really love that people are hooking now into the honest science aspect. And then comment 2 was from Bohemian Rhapsody Steve 6402, which I really like. This, your research is well designed. I love the thorough approach, which is really a big compliment for me, because sometimes people are like, how do you design an experiment? How do you do that? What kind of controls do you need? And there's not like the perfect answer. It's more like, how can you rule out that a certain thing that you see is attributed actually to the control? So if you do a well control, then you can subtract that and see, okay, the signal might be really from what you've seen. But having a good control is sometimes a bit tricky. You need to understand what's the biological context of the control. So all these kind of things. Then Edu Piles, I hope I said it right. Thanks, Dr. Chani Kumar, for the time you've spent making this video. Very interesting and entertaining. Hope we see more of your work in the near future, which I have to say thank you so much, because I didn't know that it was entertaining. I do have the urge to make it entertaining, but not, of course, in the sense of getting too weird or being unprofessional in such a way. But I do have a dark humor. I think Tobias can say, maybe he can write down in the comments. And other people already pointed out that I can be funny in some moments. So I hope at some point, if I get a bit more used to making videos like this, that you can see that my humorous side, let's say. Ross Allen, 3585. Hi, Dr. Kumar. Thank you for taking your time for some science communication. I'll admit a good amount kind of went over my head, but I reckon a couple more watches will see me more or less right. I do see the problem that we have as a scientist. First of all, thank you very much. It's a bit sad that he could not get everything in once. And I think we scientists need to develop a sense of how can we explain certain science with relatable examples that you have in real life. Situations that everyone encounters. So I'm still figuring out what kind of examples can I take that it's still representing the science in a good way, and don't break it down or water it down too much. Slams5780, thank you for doing this. More people need to realize that scientists are just real people like everyone else. I think this could help with distrust in science. If everyone had a friend or family member in science, they trust science over charlatans. Thank you so much. That is so true, and we scientists need definitely to go out more in public. Just need to talk about our science and figure out how we can communicate that in a better way. Uncle Freddy 2009, this is so valuable to see what actually PhD level scientists do for real. Great service to the community. Oh, and of course, RFK says none of this matters because, well, just more vitamins fix it all. He is completely right, and I'm so happy. Thank you very much for your comment. It is important to show what we are actually doing. The problem that we have oftentimes portrayed in the normal media, but also sometimes on social media, is you have these perfect labs, perfect people talking about their perfect sciences, and usually it's not perfect. There are a lot of setbacks that we have. Sometimes we don't get to the nitty-gritties of why is something happening, because we have a certain limitation. We need a lot of collaboration because someone else has the expertise to look from a different angle than rather you have. And that's why it's quite important to know what kind of methods do you need. So it's quite important that we portray that also in the sciences, and that is also something that I try. And even the most niche fields do have their respective being, because sometimes cool things happen in other fields that can be used in other fields as well. So CRISPR is one of the big things. It's actually an enzyme that we found in bacteria. Now we are using it to actually do gene editing. So you can see that from such a niche field, something came out that has such a big impact, and no wonder why it got a Nobel Prize, right? So we do need all these kind of niche fields, and we need to work with them closely together. Raptor Crusher Inc. 9823, I hope it's okay. I love how you can tell she knows what she's talking about. She gets so much more confident in her speaking ability the most she talks about her research. It is also amazing the work she's doing. There's so much we don't know about the cell or cancer that we would be better off knowing about. Thank you so much. And also, yeah, it's true, because I'm not so used to make these one-to-one videos. I do a lot of more podcasting, so having another person there. So I do work on being even more confident in what I say. And the problem that I sometimes have is I do think too much, including all kind of information needs to be in this little packed video. And sometimes I lose a bit of my confidence in there, because I'm like, oh, I missed this. I needed to have that. And, but I do try to get better in that. Grant Powell 4135. Add this lady to the list of real scientists Professor Dave actually knows, as opposed to Ashton, who only knows fake ones. Lol. Thanks for the informative video, Dave and Chantney. Thank you so much. I wrote down that something I don't know is about this Ashton guy, but thank you very much. And yeah, it's important to have many researchers out there who know what they're doing. It's kind of a pity to see that some get so confident in talking nonsense. So I'm so happy that you could take away something and that you really liked it. We have WH40K Fanatic said, great to be able to see you rocking in the lab, Chani. Hope you do get to achieve that dream of becoming an independent researcher. Thank you so much. That is really meaning a lot to me. It's so hard. It's very competitive. Because the system, favors all the people that have like this great kind of outstanding scientific record. But I do have to say it's a bit difficult to get to that level, and we know behind the scenes sometimes how people get there. Is it the good way? Sometimes not. So yeah, it's a big thing, and I really do hope to make the best and also be a good supervisor, which is also not given in today's whole scientific academic thing. There's a lot ongoing that we need to uncover, and I do hope that I can make my best to, give people the most amazing experience doing great science, developing themselves as a good researcher, but also figuring out, do I belong to academia? Do I belong to industry? There's always a way to change. So once you've been in industry, you can come back and vice versa. So it's not like the doors are always closed. It's not like that. So I would like to remind you. 9 said, it's always nice getting to see what real science looks like. Thank you very much. That's true. Li Lan Hua 15. I love seeing scientists talk about what they study. Thank you very much. And Noel Breitenbach 8673. When I first learned about proteins being these biomolecular machines, it totally blew my mind. I totally respect this field and this particular scientist. Thank you very much. Yes, proteomics is a big field. We do have a lot of great people working in that, pushing it for the clinical trials now and clinical applications. Proteins are really fascinating. That's why I'm so, I'm stuck with it. They do all the work in the cell, and yet, the cell knows exactly what to do. Having all these little workers inside, it's just mind-blowing to me. Folsimai, I hope that's correct. Thanks for taking the time to make this chutney. To combat disease, we have to identify the mechanisms and deficiencies which produce them. Your work directly makes being a living human better. To me, there is no greater honor. Thank you so much. That is exactly my whole motivation, that I do really want contribute to the society by my research and contributing that people who suffer from diseases do get an opportunity to recover, maybe, like understanding why do we get there. And nowadays we can also take the information for preventive medicine or preventive measurements. These are all kind of things that have emerged out of different studies, out of different fields, to come to that conclusion. And if I can just make like a tiny little bit of understanding from a different angle, I'm happy. Ryan Casey 2787 says, I understand very little of what she said. That being said, this is super important content. This allows the public to really have inside access to science. That feeling of inclusion is just as important as the basic understanding we got from communicators like Mr. Farina. All of it comes together to help prevent anti-intellectualism from spreading. Throw in the snarky debunks and you have the perfect educational channel. Thank you very much. Sorry that you couldn't grab really what I'm doing. I do try my best to make it a bit more accessible, but it's completely true. We need channels like Professor Dave's who really take their time. I don't have the time, to be honest, to debunk things. He's doing it in such a depth and such a, having for everything like a statement or a video proof that this person has said that, and can really, debunk everything with even professional people in that scientific sector. Anaf, the scientist, hope that's correct, 1149 says, it's very inspiring to see so many Indians in science. Yes, funny enough, I'm half Indian, half German, half Indian. So yeah, I do see it's really, really cool. Of course, my dear Maddie, finally the spotlight you deserve. You go, Chantni. Which is so awesome. Thank you so much, Maddie, for coming by and watching the video. We had the collaboration already on my podcast. And I do love, you know, what he's doing. I love to interact with him. He's such a great guy. So make sure that you also go on his channel if you want to learn more about nanoparticles and how they're shaping the future of medicine. So it's really, really cool. Future Ferrari, I hope that's good. Thanks, Chandni. Subscribe. So cool. Thank you so much. I hope you're still there because sometimes I don't see who's subscribing for some reason. So that really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. On Low Battery says, on this episode of Pimp My Ride, this molecular biologist shows a mass spectrometer. Also, it'd be interesting to get into the research going on with how AI is being used in protein creation. I have heard that pretty new and seems interesting. Completely agree, and I love Pimp. So I watched Pimp My Ride when I was young. So that's Pimp My Equipment. It would be the go-to option to call it, but that's so hilarious and that's so spot on. So thank you very much for that. Love that kind of humor. Yeah, there's pretty much a lot of happening in the AI space when it comes to protein design. People have started to use AI tools or make AI tools that help to predict, of course, the structure of a protein. But once you have the structure by some experimental data, you can also try to change now and make like new kind of proteins that have the, let's say, the function of different proteins in one combined. So you would have like a newly enzyme that would be capable of making maybe something that was not known before. Z8473 says, these are great. Please go into more details of the process, the machines, the software, and to give a clear example of how much work there is to be done, like how many of these samples are necessary to be considered sufficient, and then what are the specific prerequisite studies or parts to get into that field of research. How can someone join the project or do similar work on their own? Thank you so much, and a really good question. Usually, specifically now I talk about proteomics, it needs a lot of validation by measuring it more often times. So one measurement is sometimes not sufficient. Then I need, because the instrument is not always on the same, it also has its good and bad days, let's say. Then you need biological measurements, which means you need to repeat the experiment at least 3 times. In clinical settings, you need at least to have a cohort of about 100 to 500 people to have a bit of statistics. But usually what people say, if you want to measure more or have more statistical evaluation, you need like big cohorts. And big cohorts means like people of 10 to the thousands or even more. But the problem is, of course, if you do basic research, you're limited to just, the cell lines that you're using. Biologically, you have to alter them somehow to get some statistics out. So that's what I can give you. And also samples do vary. So do you have a tissue? Do you have cells? Do you have urine sample? Do you have blood sample? All these it depends completely on what kind of sample preparation you need to do, because each sample has different tasks, different difficulties that you need to address. So that's why it's important to know what kind of sample you have. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Micro Norton 9487. 100%. So you have been quite active the last few weeks, also giving me some, really cool insights, and I really appreciate your amazing support. So I'm happy that you subscribed and that you really like it. So I'm happy that you could take away, and I hope, that's the great thing that I want to give you back. Thanks a lot. So let's see for the next videos. As I already saw, I gone through over 300 comments that we had, but of course I needed to highlight 2 comments that were not so nice. So this is the bad comment section. I will not say the name. Okay, but you have to realize most of what she said is objectively wrong. And Professor Dave was like, what? And I was like, hey, what do you mean? Can you elaborate more on it? Question, or never came an answer back. So I would say that was just like to get to vent at some point. So I would know if I was wrong at some point, but I don't think so. I know what I'm doing. And this one was clearly like, that one made me so hard laugh. I needed to share that with people. So there's some emoji showing like, and then clearly she's a paid actor, a plant, sent here to destabilize the flat earth truth from coming to the light.
Yeah.
Cells under a microscope. Psst, you believe in that? What even is a microscope? What do we mean by belief? When I read this, I was like, okay.
Are you sure about that?
Serious? Is that person serious? I don't think so, but I don't know. So what I wrote, I think that was the most sassiest thing that I have ever written online. I'm so sorry to hear you think I'm a paid actor. I wish I could be an actress and play along Chris Evans to fight in the Avengers, but unfortunately I'm not. And I'm presenting here my honest work I do in the lab. Sad to hear you believe in the flat earth theory, even though science has proven it over and over again that this is not the case. I wonder that you do not believe that I'm an AI character. So I guess you have to learn a lot about science and how it's actually done. I wrote a bit more, but I found it very hilarious. And then someone else wrote down EFH 472 lol, seriously, I can't believe that there's still people who believe all that shit about the earth being flat. I don't know whether you are rage baiting or you're serious about as dumb as you look. Don't mind them, doc. Even in the brightest corner of the earth, there are some morons who can't do nothing other than making people feel bad. And I really have to say thank you so much for this comment. So I was not feeling so alone on this. So that was pretty well said. Exactly. So that was the bad comment section. So overall, I have to say thank you so much for everyone who came over from the Professor Dave fan community, supporting me now in my endeavor of honest science. So this stage is yours. I want to say thank you so much. And I hope we will have a lot of more amazing time. Okay, guys, so we are here. Drum roll. 300 subscribers. Celebration time. Yeah, so thank you very much for everyone who subscribed till now. Watching the videos and finding it very informative. You guys are rocking it. So what I thought is, I will have a Q&A. So I asked on YouTube and on Instagram some short questions that you would like to have. And I have a very special guest. Yeah, an AI called Chris AI, who is gonna maybe pose some of the questions. I was thinking, how can I make it funny and entertaining? And the only one who had time was an AI. So I'm sorry. But of course, there were some people who had time. I would like to shout out one person who just subscribed some time ago. The person is called KKQQ3QB. And if you remember, in the beginning of this year, I made a really cool podcast episode with Professor Protzer, who is developing or developed a vaccine to combat chronic hepatitis B infection. The person is asking, what is the progress of ThervacB vaccine and ongoing hepatitis B clinical trials by today? And when it will be available, what are the chances that functional cure will be attained in 2 to 3 years. Thank you for your effort to address our questions. Thank you so much for your question, and I will also have another one from you. Good news is it got clinical trial approval. So right now ThervacB is really in the clinical trial phase 1 and 2, I believe. And right now it's tested in Europe, but I wrote Professor Protzer an email congratulating, of course, her. But I do said to her that it's really cool that people from Asia really have a demand for it, because Lorena, you were already telling me that it's also something that is quite important in Hong Kong, and I believe this person is from India, so the Asian community might be also a really important community that we need to take into consideration. But for now, the clinical trials are based in Europe, as far as I see. So that's quite awesome. I cannot, because I'm not an expert from that field, I cannot give you like a timeline, but I do believe she wants to have it out within the next 5 to 10 years. But so clinical trials always take longer, because you never know what kind of side effects you will have. Everything has been tested in mice so far, and everything that you see now attributed in humans, that needs to be clarified if there are any side effects and so on, toxicity tests and so on. And how efficient is it? Because in mice it could be very efficient, but in human not. So all these questions going to be answered in this clinical trial. If everything works out, maybe in 5 years you would have something that goes into that direction. But of course this clinical trial has also to address the ethnic background of the patient. So maybe she will do a next trial once she has from the Caucasian population more data. Also something in Asia, you never know. I told her that I'm happy to get her in contact with some people from the Asian community. So I hope that they might even reach out to her, and some clinical trials will be done also in Asia. Another question, ma'am, any research ongoing related to SLE and its stage or any other outcome? Thank you so much for your cooperation. I pray for your success. Thank you so much. First of all, we need to say, what is SLE? SLE stands for Systemic Lupus Erythematosus, and that is a serious autoimmune disease. And when I was reading up a bit, so again, I'm not specialized in this field. I'm just giving you now what is known in the literature and what we can learn about it, and maybe what has been done in the last few years. If you want to have a really thorough breakdown, then maybe I will go to someone who is in the immunology field and ask them about it, have them maybe on the podcast if you want to have a more thorough breakdown. So maybe let me know in the comments if this would be something for your interest. So approximately 3.4 million people live worldwide with SLE, and we have annual incidences of 400,000 new cases. Then SLE is really more common in women than in men, and the prevalence and incidences can vary by country and ethnicity. So we have higher rates in Africa or Asia, or even in Hispanic descent, but also in high-income countries like US and Europe. So the question is, what do we know right now about this disease pathology? So characteristic for this disease is that you have autoantibodies. Usually, when you have your immune system is fighting against pathogens, then usually like bacteria or fungi or viruses, the antibody that the body produces or the immune system produces helps them to mark them. So it's like having a little marker putting on these pathogens that the immune system knows that this one is a foreign invader, we don't want to have it, so please destroy it. So the problem that we have now is we generate autoantibodies, which means these antibodies are directed against our own cells. You can imagine that if you have a faulty marker system, that suddenly this immune system starts to destroy our own organs. And that is exactly what's happening in this disease. There have been some characteristics figured out. So one of them is that other researchers found out that the immune response is altered by cytokine microenvironment. So it means cytokines are usually like signaling molecules for the immune system, so they know what to do. And they have seen that there's a specific pathway activated which is usually not activated, and this pathway has been shown to play a big role in the disease progression. Then another part or another way is so-called opsonization of red blood cells. So opsonization is a process where the body clears the infection and removes damaged or dying cells. You can like think of it's marking them as well in a certain way and make them like visible that these cells who are dying need to be eaten up by phagocytosis. So it's a special way of getting rid of the cells in that say. And here it has been shown that for the red blood cells, it's important that they also get removed. So it's part of the natural process. But usually when the red blood cells maturate, they don't have or they get rid of the nucleic acid content. So usually a red blood cell does not contain any DNA anymore. But the problem that they have figured out is some of these patients have been shown that their blood cells, red blood cells, are actually not removing the DNA, especially not the mitochondrial DNA. And that, when these cells are eaten up, triggers inside these eating up cells that, you know, are kind of like the trash can. They signal suddenly this kind of mitochondrial DNA, and that sets this specific pathway that I was talking about before, and triggers them to release these cytokines in that specific way, and that triggers somehow this autoimmunity. Another way disease mechanism is by the complement system. So you have alteration by your innate and adaptive immune system. And the question that we have is now, what kind of molecular insights do we have? So one part is the immune system consists of many kind of cells that we have, the immune cells, so B and T cells, and they saw that especially the T cells are dysregulated. Then we have also an epigenetic component, which means it's on the level of gene regulation. So they figured out that hypomethylation, which means you have less DNA methylation. So the DNA can be modified by methylation. So you add like a little chemical component to it. So certain regions cannot be read easily anymore. So certain genes, this is also a process where you silence genes by having a methylation mark there. And what they figured out is that genes that are important for the signaling pathway are actually hypomethylated, which means they are less methylated than they should be. Therefore, they are actually read more and produced more, which shouldn't be the case. So that is also something that is quite new. And this DNA methylation or the changes in that has been shown to correlate with active SLE and predicting the remission status. Then some specific cells that they figured out in a subtype of or specific manifestation of SLE, which is lupus nephritis. It's actually a component where mostly the kidneys are damaged to the autoimmune disease. And they figured out that there is like an innate lymphoid cells that have really specific receptors, and they actually create all these problems of this disease progress. So now what are current clinical trials? So we have some approved therapeutics such as anifrolumab. So it's a monoclonal antibody that binds actually to the IFNN receptor and blocking therefore the signaling, so actually it cannot fire any cytokines anymore. We have also CAR T cell therapy, which seems to be very promising, but still it's a very, very early stages. It has been seen in 4 refractory SLE patients to be good and have safety profiles. Others work on inhibitors and small molecule approaches, but one paper that I found just recently, some days published, was depending on AI, which is really cool. So a new paper came out that said deep SLE with retinal images, and I was quite interested. Why would you take a retina image? So from your eyes, the background, why would you take such an image? And it has been shown that retina changes, so changes in your eyes, are common in these patients and could work as a non-invasive biomarker to detect how active is the disease and how far is the damage already, which is quite interesting. So they developed this kind of deep learning system based on pre-training data of 666,000 images, and these images have been generated from 173,000 participants, and the training and the validation has been done also from China and the UK, images taken there, and they wanted to aim to detect SLE and its complications using only these photos. So you have to imagine you gave your retinal images, and that has been used to train the AI, which means what is healthy, what means what is already a little clinical subtype, and so on and so on. And once they have established this AI, they could compare it to primary care doctors and specialists who can read out these images on their own, and they could see that the algorithm was really good in figuring out if there's a subtype or not, or if there's already a clinical issue ongoing. So that was really cool, and could complement later on even primary care doctors, helping them to actually validate if they really see something. And the model has been quite accurate and was sometimes performing even better than the primary care doctor. And that also was tested across different subgroups. So like age, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic stage was also taken into consideration and showed consistent performance, which is cool, therefore reducing the risk of biases. And now they would like to integrate and see the potential in really like, is it something that we can have in the clinical practice day-to-day basis? But right now, the limitation of these studies, or the study, is most of the data that they have, they trained on Chinese patients. So you need to take it with a grain of salt right now, that this has to be now tested in other parts of the country. So Europe, US, South America, Africa. You also have to take all of them together to see if this deep learning can be used for, in general, like a practice that can be seen in general. And another thing is complication in subtyping, like since they had only a small sample size, for instance, for the one that I talked, lupus nephritis, so this one is the one that targets the kidney. The problem is they had only a small sample size, so the data that they provide for that is very preliminary, so we need to be very cautious about that. And it has to be feeded into a larger real-world clinician trial before it gets a routine adaptation. So it means overall we need to be very careful, but that is quite of a cool new thing, how AI can help us to predict if someone has the very first stages of SLE, especially in women. So what's the takeaway? Still challenge, and we need the understanding of the disease mechanism. There's still a lot of ongoing, especially from a genetic and ethnicity background, and why are women more prone to have it than men. Therapeutic challenges, of course, for precision medicine in routine clinical practices, and also is it cost effective and accessible. So that's also something that we need to address. I hope I could give you a good overview, and we go to the next one. So one from Instagram, which was really nice. What was your childhood dream, being a scientist or something else? Thank you very much for the question. My childhood dream was becoming a doctor, so a medical professional, but that didn't turn out to be good because I cannot see blood so much, which is funny enough. I think the biggest problem that I had was the overall story of every patient that would come with it. Am I capable of not letting the story touch my soul too much? I hope you understand what I mean. So I do believe that I wouldn't be the best doctor. I would cry nearly every day because I have the feeling I cannot help everyone. Yes, I do have a lot of empathy, which would be good for a doctor, right? But I think my empathy is too deep. And my skill set is more like in understanding things and making novel connections, and that's why I think I'm good in general for being a scientist. I guess that makes more sense to me. As I said, I have a really special guest. Please welcome Chris AI. So since I'm very honest here, I didn't get a lot of questions from you guys. So I was thinking, hey, you know what? Make it funny enough. Just invite an AI who makes all the questions. And it's quite challenging to find an AI that, from generating text to a video. So I managed to get some, so you will see some of them. But I thought it would be good to have diversity of different questions.
What inspired you to start your YouTube channel?
What inspired me to start my YouTube channel was the passion for science. So I was so passionate, or I'm still passionate about science, that I was like, hey, I want to talk about it. I want to, sometimes you figure out like a cool paper and you're like, why is no one talking about that? Like it will never make to the normal media that the general public will know about. Sometimes even the smallest kind of cool thing is underrepresented. So I was like, hey, if you make a little video about it or explain it in a short sequence, maybe that gets people even more excited, and that's why I did it.
How do you balance being a scientist and creating content?
I would say it's not good how I balance it. I do put more effort, of course, into my career and because this is like my living, right? I have the feeling I could do more, but as I said in the previous section, I don't want to burn out. So I can do better, but I think right now the way I'm doing it is, for my belief, the best.
What would you say is the biggest challenge when you're starting a new YouTube channel?
That's a good one. First of all, talking to a camera was a big challenge for me. talking freely. So right now, don't having a script, editing a lot yourself, it's already cringe enough. The lack of people who write comments. So like the response from the audience was something that was really tough for me. When I uploaded, the first responses that I got were of course from friends and family and maybe people from work, but it was not really something that an outstanding person who never saw your channel would write something. And I was like, maybe it's my fault that I didn't do enough to invite the people to write something. But oftentimes there are no reasons to write a comment because you enjoyed it and you left a like and that's it. So yeah, that were quite the biggest challenges I would say I faced.
What kind of videos are you most excited to make in the future?
I am excited to make more podcasts once I figured out how I could do more of them without harming my overall career. But I would be interested in also exploring others' lab, maybe doing like a live Q&A or something like, live streaming would be something that I would be quite interested once we are a bit bigger and having more people. I would love to have the time to make really nitty-gritty, awesome science videos, that you have like a problem, you explain how the problem has been evaluated till now. So I don't know, a certain disease that has been quite well studied now and the therapeutic effects, and how this has been translated into human trials, and having maybe even an interview with someone who has gone through this kind of medication, like you get this CRISPR trial, for instance, and suddenly you realize, oh, that's so cool. I can do suddenly things that I couldn't do before because I was limited by my disease. So this would be really cool content. A lot of more collaborations with other YouTubers I would love to. And maybe also being a bit more into being asked to be an expert for a certain video. Like someone has a question about science and you come in and be like, okay, I can tell you something about the disease area, what's right now cooking up, what people have figured out. That would be also something that I would love to do in the future.
How long does it take you to make a video from idea to upload?
I'm very honest. So for the podcast, it takes at least 1 weekend to write, sometimes a whole week to write the script. The shooting itself is not very a lot, and then of course the editing takes another week, I would say, so 2 weeks at least. Now this type of video I'm not doing very often. That took me now also 2 weeks, to be honest, from I'm having the idea. I had the idea schon a bit longer, but having the time, having the muse, having the right mindset right now, it does take 2 weeks at least. I hope that I can have this video out soon. So that would be my answer to that.
If you could invite any scientist, living or historical, for coffee, who would it be?
Well, that's such a good question. For living, I would have 2 that I would like to talk to. That would be Caroline Bertozzi, Katarina Kalinko. So both of them got the Nobel Prize. I would love to have a talk with them with the chat, because these are 2 women, really strong. And I think you know the story by now from Katarina, who really went through a lot. And without her innovative studies, we wouldn't have had the mRNA vaccines for COVID. So it would be really cool to have a talk about endurance, not giving up, that would be. Historically, Madame Curie, maybe. Albert Einstein would be really cool. Yeah, that would be like my choice. Okay, what's a book, podcast, or movie that inspired you recently? I don't have a lot of recommendations for podcasts or so. Books, I don't read so many books, to be honest. I do read a lot of papers, but movie, I have to say the Marvel movies. Sorry, but I'm a little Marvel fan. Especially Infinity War and Endgame was really inspiring to me. Everyone came there. They didn't give up. They were fighting Thanos. Podcasts, I would say Dr. Mike's podcast for sure. Dr. Lane Norton has now one, which is also quite interesting. I heard a podcast from David Duchovny with Robert Downey Jr. was really good. The one where Dr. Mike was invited to talk about RFK and that he wants him out of office. And yeah, some podcasts with the Marvel people like Chris Evans interviewing Paul Rudd or Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr. So yeah, it's quite interesting what they are talking about. So just to see like the different angle in a different universe, let's say. So film universe is completely different, I would say. So that was quite inspiring for me. If you could collaborate with any creator or scientist, who would it be? Dr. Mike? Is there a chance? Yes. That would be really cool. Some German YouTubers, I would be very interested. On the international, Will Tennyson, I would be so down to have one with him. I don't know. There are so many cool people who do so cool stuff. Some in the German space, some in the international space. I would love to have like an episode with an actor like Chris Evans or so. Just talking about the two different worlds that we live in. And do we find common ground? I think that would be so cool. I think, what would be your go-to option? With whom you would like to see me having a collaboration? I think that's a cool question that you can answer maybe. Okay, and the last question for today. Coffee or tea while writing papers? Coffee for sure. I'm not such a tea person. While writing papers, not only, also doing this kind of stuff, so having fun. So yeah, pretty much cool Q&A. We reached the end of the Q&A, celebrating 300 subscribers. Okay guys, we come to an end. We covered a lot from, I went to a scientific conference in North Carolina to getting you to the New York City streets, talking about what I figured out, how I liked it. I talked a bit about mental health. I talked about really cool science. I also talked about you guys, your Q&A. Thanks again for 300 subscribers. Now we are aiming for 500 or even more, right? So let's spread honest science. And thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know. Please leave a like. Subscribe if you're new here. I try to maximize a bit more, having really cool science again once I'm a bit more into my zone. And you know what comes. As always, let a little dose of honest science in your life and brighten up your day. All the best and see you soon.